Good morning, everyone. Today is Wednesday, April 8th, 2020. It's approximately 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thank you for joining us again on our daily podcast. Today, we are talking about the top 10 things to consider before filing a divorce. Once again, I'm joined by our family law legal panel. I'll give them an opportunity to introduce themselves. But I do want to remind our participants that as you join us and as you come in, please make sure that you're muted. If you have any questions, please make sure that you send them to us, and then we'll get them answered for you. So let's get straight to it. Gina, let's do a brief intro.
Sure. My name is Gina Famularo, and I'm a partner at Family Law Matters. We only practice family law at our firm. I've been an attorney for 22 years.
Thank you, Gina. Christy?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Christy Bergamo. I'm a senior family law attorney here at Family Law. I have been practicing for 17 years. I'm currently also an instructor at University of California, Riverside in paralegal studies. I have certified to represent children in court, and I have set judge pro tem in Orange County for the last 3 years. So, well, good morning, everybody.
Thank you, Christy. Colleen?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Colleen Robinson. I'm an attorney here at Family Law Matters. I've been practicing for 10 years, mostly in San Diego County and in Riverside County. I have appeared throughout Southern California, and I hope everyone's well.
Thank you guys for that. And I am Bashor Shahada. I'm a managing partner here at Family Law Matters. I've been an attorney for a little over 2.5 years, and family law is all I know. So let's get straight to it. The top 10 things to consider before filing a divorce. I know we compiled this list, so let's go through it. Colleen, I'm going to start with you. Number one thing that we put on the list is be certain. What does that mean?
Well, we talked about this in the last couple of days, and be certain with your decision. This is not an area when you're thinking about filing for divorce to tread lightly. You got to really think about this is what you truly want. And sometimes you don't know, and that's okay not to know, but know where to get resources to help you make that decision. So whether that's exhausting all efforts to make sure about your marriage, going to a counselor, seeking help from your church, your social circle, whatever it is, but you need to, we strongly recommend that you exhaust those efforts to see if there's any hope in reconciling or fixing your marriage before you go down the path of filing for divorce. Divorce is not a tactical tool to use against your spouse if you're trying to level the playing field on whatever issue. We talked about this in our podcast even yesterday, because you have to be careful. Once you start it, you may not have intended to finish through with it, but your other spouse could then, would turn into something permanent. So you got to be careful with that. And don't file anything. Again, this goes with being certain. Don't file for divorce unless you really know this is where that your marriage is over.
Okay. Thank you, Colleen. Christy, anything to add?
Excuse me?
Anything to add?
No, I'll just piggyback on what Colleen said, is that, this is not to be used to fire I call a warning shot. This is not to be used to, make sure the other side still cares about you. Because as Colleen aptly pointed out, once you go down that path, you can't take it back. You possibly can't take it back. So you need to reach out to your support system and make sure that you've done everything you can to make sure that this is the process you want to pursue.
Thank you, Christy. Since I have you here, let's talk about the second thing to do in preparation second thing to consider in preparation for a divorce, and it's assess your safety level. What does that mean?
Absolutely. First of all, if you're the victim of domestic violence, that's a very careful consideration of how you start this process, how you go through this process. Obviously, your personal safety, the safety of your children is of the utmost concern. And I get a lot of times when I do consultations, I'm afraid when my spouse finds out they're going to, harm me or harm the children or take the children. I have clients that come in and say they've threatened to take the children out of the state, out of the county, out of the country even. I've had cases where they've taken the children out of the country if they know that you're filing for divorce. So those are very careful considerations, and strategy needs to be made in order to protect yourself and your children, and also protect your assets. Clients come to me all the time and say, you know, they threaten to take all the money. They threaten to destroy our property. I mean, all those are very careful considerations that have to be made. Also, you have to consider whether or not the other side is suicidal. They may harm themselves. So that's a consideration that has to be made. What about drugs and alcohol? A lot of my clients have their spouse that unfortunately suffer with these issues, and is that going to enhance their abuse of those substances, and how do we deal with that? And that's where I think consulting an attorney to have a good safety plan to keep yourself, your children, your assets, and in fact the other side safe during this process. You really need to think about that and reach out to us so that we can help you navigate that.
Thank you, Christy. Gina, I want to get to you with the third point, which is gather your financial information. What does that mean?
Sure. It means that you need to have a financial picture as to what's going on before you make a move. For instance, you need to know what you own. Do you have property? What's the equity in the property? How much is it worth? How much is the mortgage? What do you have in the bank? Do you have any liquid assets? Do you have any savings? Is there any 401k or investments? Do you have stocks or bonds? What about loans? Are there any IRS debts? Do you have any credit card bills? Know your financial picture, both what you own, but also what you make. Not just you, but the other side. If the other side is working, how much money do they make? Do you have a paycheck stub that you can get? Do you have any tax returns? If not, if the taxes were done by an accountant, perhaps you should give the accountant a call and ask for a copy. If the other side is self-employed, perhaps there's books and records in the home that you need to gather and make copies of. In short, you need to know how much money you have, so you know how much there's going to be to live on when you go see your attorney, but also what do you have as far as assets, so you know what there is to divide when you start talking about the terms of the divorce.
And Gina, is it problematic at this stage if they don't have access or can't gather all of that information?
It could be. Now, the law in California is that both parties are to fully disclose what they own, what they owe, and what they make. But unfortunately, the law assumes that the person on the other side is honest. And if the other party is not going to be forthcoming in their assets, if you don't know where they're banked, it's going to be very difficult to find the banking information. If they don't disclose that they've got money in the bank, but you know they bank at a certain bank, then it's easy for us to go out and get the information from the bank itself. But if you don't even give us a starting place as to where the assets are located, it's very difficult for us to locate those assets when we get down to the nitty-gritty.
Thank you, Gina. Colleen, I want to get to Gina's point, which is actually our fourth point. Consult with an attorney. What does that mean?
Well, this is a perfect segue from Gina into this point here, because it's all about getting information and getting organized to lay the foundation of where your case would be potentially going. So coming in and speaking to an attorney, you're getting information, you're knowing what your rights would be, what you can expect with the information that we have, and what obligations, if you're going to be paying support, in terms of what debts are out there, how that could possibly be divided. It's giving you some answers to this very big unknown situation that's going through a divorce. But also with that, it's helpful, and before you even come and speak with us, get the information you get access to. So looking at your bank accounts, getting those tax returns, creating a budget, that's a very good tool for just about everybody, even if you're not going through a divorce, just to take a look at where your money is going. But when you're doing that in preparation for your consultation with your attorney, that gives us an idea about what you need for your basic living expenses for not only you, but also for your children if you have some. So that is an extremely helpful piece of information for us in a discussion for support. But it also is helpful for you in planning what your next steps are in terms of your life without your spouse. So I think it's just helpful. It's a helpful tool anyway to get you organized and in that mindset to take care of yourself in this next chapter in your life.
Thank you, Colleen. Christy, you guys are your segue. So Christy, let's segue about the exit strategy. Colleen hinted towards having a plan. So number 5 is create an exit strategy. What does that mean?
Before I answer that, I have 2 comments to make on what Gina and Colleen said. One regarding what Gina said and gathering your financial information. I always say, be your own detective. I think you need to, and I get clients all the time, and I'm sure the panel can agree with me, that they say specifically, well, I don't know what they make. I don't know what we have. I wasn't in control of the finances. And I think if you're going to go through this process successfully, you need to start knowing what you have, what they make. And there's some resources for you. For instance, with the IRS, you can ask for a copy of your tax return transcript. So that's a really good place to start if you are the person that, didn't handle the finances. So, but you need to be your own detective. And in fact, you can hire a private investigator if you want to look into those issues as well. So there are resources, there are ways you can become educated. And I think we can all agree that the more educated you are during this process, the better off you are. And that segues into the comment I have about what Colleen said when you go to your consultation with your attorney. I can't tell you how many times I've had clients who've hired me far into their litigation that say the same thing. I wish I would have hired you from the beginning. And I think that's a really good point to make, that you want to be ahead of the game. You don't want to be playing catch up during this process. You don't want to go into court unrepresented and make a mistake, because it's easy to do. This process is extremely complicated. So what you want to do is have your squad, if you will, around you from the beginning. And I think, again, if you've got anything to litigate, or you have anything other, now if the marriage is 3 years and you have no assets, then obviously that's not what we're really talking about here. We're talking about a true dissolution with assets and kids and so forth. And you really need to be ready out the gate. And that comes with consulting with an attorney and hiring an attorney, because you don't want to be that person saying, I wish I would have hired you from the beginning. So those are my comments on there. Now I'll answer your question or your comment, is to create an exit strategy. And that means that, where are you going to live? How are you going to get your children to school, to and from school? If you have a child with special needs, how are those issues going to be dealt with? Who's going to help you? Because understand that half of this unit is going to be gone. And what you have to envision is how you're going to make up for that. You're going to see your kids less. How do you want to see them? You need to create a day-to-day plan for those types of issues. And finally, you have to understand that everybody, I always say this, once someone decides to go through this process, they want it done immediately, because they finally decided they can't live with this person. They don't want to be with this person. So when you're done, so to speak. And they think that this process is just going to be done like that, and it's not. This is a long process. You're not going to get to court right away unless there's some emergency. We've discussed during all of our podcasts about what agreement can be reached in the meanwhile. You really have to consider those things and what you want that picture to look like when this is all said and done. But like I said, there's no quick fix. And when we go through this process, it's always interesting to me that how you thought it was going to look when it started is very different than how it looks when it ends. And you have to be open-minded. You've got to be reasonable and assume that there are going to be changes to what you think it's going to look like. But you do need to have that plan in place and consider those things.
Thank you, Christy. Gina, I want to get to you about number 6, which is, again, in line with what Christy was saying, have a support network. Obviously, this isn't going to end very quickly, and there's a period of time where you're going to need support. So again, number 6, have a support network. What does that look like?
Well, what that means is that divorce is emotionally, financially taxing. Your life will change if you decide to file for divorce. Everything in your life will likely change. Your routine, your social network, your financial situation, perhaps where you live, perhaps where your children go to school. It's an incredibly stressful time. In fact, it's one of the top stressors in a person's life. What we want to make sure our clients know is that you're not going to be able to rely on the same people you likely relied on before. You're not going to be able to rely on your spouse for sure. You're not going to be able to rely on any mutual friends. You're going to need to find a new network of people many times to help you through these things. It may be relying more on family members. It may be getting a counselor and going through to therapy. It may mean that you need to get advisors such as an accountant if you're having trouble with your finances, or a financial planner. The point is your life is going to change radically. Account for that from the beginning and know that you're going to need some help. You're going to need somebody to talk to and bounce ideas off of, and somebody to cry on their shoulder when things get tough. You're not going to be able to pick up the phone and call your spouse and expect them to answer and to walk you through these things, even if they were your best friend before. Not everybody that goes through divorce is the one choosing to go through the divorce. Many times our clients are the ones who want to stay married, but everything's going to change. So find people that you trust, that is a close circle of friends or advisors that will help you get through this.
And Gina, on that note, I want to transition to number 7, which is steel yourself, S-T-E-E-L. And I know you kind of hit that topic a little bit, but I'd like you to elaborate a little bit more on what does it mean to steel yourself?
Well, I think it goes to what Colleen said at the very beginning, which is make sure this is what you want. There is a heavy toll, a heavy price to pay when you file for divorce. Again, everything in your life is going to change. If you have children, they're going to be emotionally harmed by the divorce. Your finances are going to be decimated. Your assets are going to be divided. Your debt load is going to increase. It is not an easy process. And there's a balancing between the cost of going through the divorce and the benefit of what's going to come out at the other end. Because if this is something that you choose to do, God will bless you. On our wall, we have a saying from the Bible, which is all things work together for good for those who love God, Romans 8:28. Why is that there? Because the process is a very difficult process, but at the other end, God will bless you. So steel yourself, Bishoy, basically means that you're going to be going through stressful and uncertain times. Know that going in. Be prepared for that going in, but know on the other side that things are going to be okay. They will always be okay, You just need to get through it. And once you start, as Christy said, you may not be able to stop. So this is a process. Once it's started, you got to get to the other side, and it's going to be a long, difficult process to get there, but lots of people have gone before you, and you too will get through it.
Awesome. Thank you, Gina. Colleen, as our viewers or clients start preparing for the divorce, we often advise them to be careful what they reveal, which is why we put it as number 8. So what does be careful what you reveal mean for the clients?
Well, you have to assume if you're in litigation that your life is under the spotlight, and that in our day and age, that can get you into trouble, because we rely so heavily on social media, and we're a very big texting culture right now. So social media, you have to be careful. We recommend you probably should just take down your social media. I know that's really hard because people live through their social media accounts, but when you're posting emotional things about what you're experiencing or what you feel about your spouse, you have to assume that that's going to be screenshotted, that's going to be printed, and that's going to appear in front of a judge. And that also applies to text messages. It's so easy just to get our phones and text whatever you're feeling at the time to whomever. But again, especially when you're in that moment and you're like, I just got to tell them, this, that, or the other, again, assume that's going to be read in front of a judge. So that goes back to some of our other points is Chrissy said it, and I really like that phrase, building your squad. When you are having those emotional moments, who are you going to share those with? Send it to your best friend, send it to your mom or whomever. If you need to get it out, don't send it to your spouse. Don't send it to a friend that's closely connected with your spouse that's going to share that or whatever. And now it's a part of your court pleadings, or it's a part of the pleadings. And now you've got to answer to it when you were reacting in the moment to something like that. And that also applies to when you're out in the public with your friends. People are posting pictures of going out at the bars or whatever, and you're intoxicated. That's not going to play well. So we have to kind of take our own behavior and look at it at a bird's eye view and be really strategic in what you're doing. It's not easy because it requires kind of a step up in your own reconnaissance of what you're doing, but you have to be strategic. And also, you have to be careful with what you're saying to your spouse. And we have a whole other topic about this, preparing for a divorce. But you have to assume that if you're going to share intimate details about maybe your own divorce planning with your attorney, that's going to be used against you. And you don't want to share conversations you have with your attorney to your spouse, because then they're going to tell their attorney. And again, that will come back and potentially bite you in the backside. So we need to be careful. You have to start changing your perception and your mindset of your communication with your spouse when you're going through a divorce. You want to have a business-like relationship with them, but not a friendship like that anymore, and sharing those kinds of details. Because again, you don't want something that you say, you write, you text, you post to be used against you. And also, that goes with your mutual friends that you shared. So you just have to assume that what you tell your best couple friend that the two of you spend a lot of time with, they may tell your spouse too personal information that you're sharing. So it's just, you have to be careful with whom you're sharing information with and what you're doing. And right now, it's very difficult to do that because of the widespread use of social media and text messaging.
Thank you, Colleen. And I do want to stay with you as we talk about number 9, because I think it pertains. And number 9, advice that we give our clients is be realistic. What does be realistic mean?
Well, Gina had talked about it. It's being realistic with the process, being realistic with your expectations, being realistic with the emotional aspect of this and the time that it's involved with getting a divorce. More than likely, we were talking about this before we started recording. If you're in a long-term marriage, it took you a while to get to this point, and this is not an overnight process. So you have to instill yourself as well as to Gina's point, you have to prepare yourself that this is not something that's going to be dealt with overnight. So you have to be realistic with that expectation. Also, knowing and realizing that no one's a real winner in family law. When we take an overall view of what's happened to a family unit, it can be devastating. You have children who are no longer have both of their parents in a household. You're dividing your debts, or you're getting debts that now you're going to be solely responsible for. The family home is gone. More than likely, we're going to have to sell it. It's a whole new change of your perception of your life. And that's not easy. And again, there's no real winners, because this is so difficult to go through a divorce like this. It's just changing your whole picture. Even in talking to all of us and with all of our experiences, even going to trial and you have like the best set of facts, your attorney's saying you've got really good facts, like this is great. We can't always anticipate what the judge is going to do. And even at time of trial, you're still going to require to do some sort of compromise. And that's usually when people are ready to compromise, we can get a lot of work done too, and we can try to settle your cases sooner. So it's just being realistic with this process, knowing that it's not something that it's going to be dealt with overnight or in a couple of weeks. You got to be prepared for the emotional toll it's going to be, and then how it's going to impact your life going forward.
Thank you, Colleen. Christy, I want to get back to you. Colleen mentioned be prepared for the emotional toll that it's going to take on you, but we're advising our client, number 10 is leave your emotions out. So how does this work?
Well, I think what that means is that you cannot make decisions in this process by your emotional state. You have to leave your emotions out of your decisions regarding your divorce. I've had clients over the years I'll give you an example. During the 2007 mortgage lending crisis, 2007, 2008, I went to trial for 3 days over the loss in the house. So the house was upside down, but both parties wanted it. So my client spent, I don't know how many tens of thousands of dollars to go to trial on a house that was upside down, or debt, arguing about who takes the debt. And those are emotional decisions. And obviously it's my job to try and guide you, but at the end of the day, you're running the ship, and I'm here to assist you in that regard. But I see the happier, if you will, person exiting this process when they've left their emotions at the door. We said it before, communication, it needs to be business-like with the other side in all respects. I have vast trial experience, and I'll touch on what Colleen said about you never know what a judge is going to do, number one. I'd love to have that crystal ball. I think I'd be the only attorney in all of Southern California, but I don't. And as skilled as I am and as successful as I am in trial, you truly don't know. And there is no winner here. I think I get clients asking me, what's your win record? And that's not a realistic question, because, this isn't criminal law. You either beat the case or you go to jail. This isn't civil law where you win and you get damages. It doesn't work like that in family law. We have to be reminded that we are a no-fault state. So arguably there should be no winners, that everything should be equal. Everything should be even. So again, I think when you go to trial, you're taking a risk about what you think, or you may think the judge will do, but what the judge will actually do. And so it's very important to check your emotions at the door. It segues also back into, have your squad, have your support team. Those are the people that you want to lean on during this time, but absolutely do not make decisions in your divorce while you're emotional. It comes up a lot, and we all know this with children. They're our lives. So, we get emotional about, parenting time and what that visitation schedule is going to look like. But we have to think, and my minors counsel work, I implore parents to, and I say to them all the time, look, you don't even realize you're going through your own emotion about it, but you have a child there or children that are going through it too. So think of their emotional health, think of their emotional stability during this time, and be logical about it and be patient.
Christy, do you often get the question about your client focusing on the other side winning? Do you get that concern? Let me rephrase it. Do you see people focusing on the other side winning rather than trying to negotiate a fair result?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said, B, I mean, I'm in court every single day, pretty much. And I see it all the time. They're winning this, they're winning that. It looks like they're winning. And there are no winners. There are certain legal calls that have to be made sometimes. That's just no question. Like whether or not a certain asset is a community asset or not, or what is the date of separation. Those are litigatable issues that sometimes just can't be resolved, amongst ourselves. But, you can't get emotional about whether or not you think they're winning or losing, because they may not think they're winning. I just think it's a negative perspective that is going to fuel you to litigate. And litigation is not cheap. If you want to litigate, you are going to see, and you start thinking, I tell some of my clients, I'm like, the money that they're spending, the other side spending to litigate or wants to litigate, you could have put your kid through college. So I think you have to put it in that kind of perspective, is how much is this issue truly worth to you, emotionally, financially, even physically sometimes. And that's really the point, is that we want to use litigation as a tool for certain issues, but not everything has to be litigated. And I think people need to be reasonable and rational about those decisions, because it's not only expensive, but it takes a very huge emotional toll. When I prepare a client for a trial, I mean, most people don't sit and go to court and be witnesses and are in the courtroom process. And it's very intimidating. It's scary. They're afraid they're going to mess up. I mean, it takes a lot of preparation to prepare for a trial. And, witnesses, we have to call witnesses of people to get involved that, you don't necessarily want to get involved. So it's a careful consideration. And I feel that when you decide things emotionally, you make a ton of mistakes. It's like sending that text. I'll put it in Colleen's context. When you're sending, that you want to send that text to that spouse, and then you sleep on it and you wake up the next morning, you're like, oh my gosh, why did I do that? Why didn't I just take a breath, wait a moment, and make a rational decision?
Colleen, thank you, Christy. Colleen, you have something to add?
Yeah, it just again about leaving the emotions out. It's learning how to do that. Like how do you go from talking to your spouse where you shared those kinds of things with, to now being more business-like. That's also something it's a learned skill. And I think that when you're experiencing the emotions of a divorce, it is going through a grief process. So this is going back to your support system and building your squad. And it's making sure you have the tools and the resources you need to grieve the loss of your marriage, and so that you can get to a point where you are communicating with your spouse in a business-like manner. So it is something that you have to learn how to do. But again, making sure that you have the support system, and whether it's okay to get counseling, it's okay to ask for help too. And a counselor can help you work on those issues, that when those emotions start getting the best of you, your coping mechanisms or whatever else that you need in order to get to channel those emotions somewhere else than back at your spouse.
Thank you, Colleen. Final closing comments.
Sure. Divorce is a stressful, expensive, and difficult process. Some people need to get divorced. Other people have no choice. They're dragged into the process by the other side. If you are experiencing a divorce or thinking about a divorce, we're here for you. We've done many, many divorces. We've helped thousands of people. Call us and we'll be happy to walk you through the process.
Thank you, Gina. And I do just want to remind the participants and our viewers of the 10 things to consider. Number 1, we said was be certain. Number 2 is assess your level, your safety level. Number 3 is gather your financial information. Number 4, consult with an attorney. Number 5, create an exit strategy. Number 6, have a support network. Number 7 is steel yourself. Number 8 is be careful what you reveal, be strategic. Number 9 is be realistic. And finally, number 10 is leave your emotions out of it. Thank you again for the legal panel for joining me. I do want to remind the viewers that if you're unable to join, this will be posted on our social media, YouTube, Facebook, and our website. If you have any questions, please continue to send them to us. And if you need a consultation or would like to speak to any of us, please make sure that you call 951-587-0505, or you can email us at info@temeculadivorce.com. You can also visit our website at temeculadivorce.com and request a consultation. Thank you guys again, and God bless.
God bless.
Bye.
Bye.